Stephen persisted with his determination to give battle to the enemy in the hope of striking a knockout blow. But his army was heavily outnumbered, and most of his troops fled, leaving the king and his bodyguard, who dismounted, to fend for themselves. As usual, Stephen fought valiantly and killed several of his opponents, but he was felled ignominiously with a stone and taken in triumph to Matilda's capital at Bristol. And there, as a final indignity, he was imprisoned in chains. With Stephen out of the way, Matilda declared herself queen. But when she went to London to be crowned, there was a mass uprising against her, and she was literally chased out of the city. For the first time since the conquest, the people had some say in who would rule over England. The tide was turning against Matilda. She was forced to release Stephen when her greatest ally, Robert of Gloucester, was himself captured. Stephen was back on the throne. But even that didn't end the war. For the next 7 years, Matilda refused to give up, urging her army on in a conflict that was exhausting the energy and the resources of both sides. Finally, in 1148, Matilda accepted that she would never be queen and returned to France. Stephen had won, but England had paid a high price. Stephen, the last of the Norman kings, died 6 years later in 1154, having settled with Matilda's son Henry that Henry would inherit the throne. So the English crown went to Matilda's heirs after all, beginning a new dynasty that was to rule in England for more than 300 years. This is Faversham in Kent, and I'm walking across what was once the site of Faversham Abbey. Here's Stephen's wife, Queen Matilda, his eldest son, Count Eustace, and the king himself were buried in the magnificent Abbey church which Stephen had constructed. But 400 years later, Faversham, like the rest of the abbeys, was dissolved, and the abbey was demolished, and scarcely a trace of it remains. And there's no sign either of the royal tomb of the last Norman king of England. The key to English politics has been a combination of strong government with government by consent. The latter was the great achievement of Anglo-Saxon England, which the Normans were wise enough to keep. But the Norman kings themselves, with their castles, their knights, their administrative flair, and above all, their indomitable wills, made the monarchy infinitely stronger. Their cathedrals and abbeys made England more beautiful, and their language, their courtesy, and their chivalry made it more civilized. They also, on the debit side, made it infinitely more class-ridden. But still, there are worse legacies of conquest and colonization.